I've been working as a night shift nurse at Mercy General Hospital for 3 years now. Nothing really scared me anymore, until last Tuesday night. It was 2:47 a.m. when I heard footsteps in the pediatric ward, slow, deliberate steps echoing down the empty hallway. The thing is, all our young patients were fast asleep, and I was the only staff member on that floor. I grabbed my flashlight and followed the sound. The footsteps led me to room 314, a room that's been empty for 2 months since little Lily Martinez died there from complications. Her parents couldn't afford the extended treatment, and she didn't make it. The door was slightly open, which was impossible because I always keep empty rooms locked. As I pushed it open, the smell hit me first. Vanilla and strawberries, Lily's favorite scents. Her grandmother used to bring those candles every day during visiting hours. Inside, I saw her. Lily was sitting on the hospital bed, her small frame barely making an indent in the mattress. She was wearing the same purple nightgown she died in, but it was pristine now, not torn and blood-stained like before. "Nurse Rachel," she said in that sweet voice I remembered so clearly, "I've been waiting for you to come check on me." My hands were shaking uncontrollably. "Lily, sweetie, you're not supposed to be here anymore." She smiled, but something was terribly wrong with her eyes. They were completely black, like staring into bottomless pits. "I know I'm supposed to be gone, but I can't leave yet. I'm still very sick, and Abuela said you'd take good care of me." I wanted to run screaming down the hallway, but my legs felt like concrete. Lily's smile grew wider, revealing teeth that were rotting and crumbling out of her mouth. Dark blood dripped from her gums onto the white hospital sheets. "Will you give me my medicine now? The special medicine that makes all the pain stop forever?" she asked, tilting her head at an impossible angle. That's when I noticed the IV stand beside her bed was dripping something thick and dark into her tiny arm. Not saline solution, something that looked like motor oil mixed with blood, making horrible plopping sounds as it hit the floor. "Lily, let me call your family. Abuela and Mama can't come visit anymore," she interrupted, her voice becoming distorted and echoing strangely. "They're sleeping forever now in the cold ground, just like I want to sleep forever. But first, you need to give all the other children their special medicine too." I slowly turned and looked down the long hallway. They were all there. Dozens of deceased children in faded hospital gowns, standing silently outside their former rooms. All of them had the same hollow black eyes, the same decomposing smiles, the same dark liquid dripping from various wounds. "We're all still so very sick," Lily whispered behind me. "And you're going to help us spread our sickness to everyone in this hospital, starting with the sleeping children upstairs." I ran then. I ran faster than I'd ever run in my life, but I could hear dozens of small feet following me, getting closer and closer. I quit that same night, but sometimes, late at night, I still hear Lily calling my name.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now, before the next nightmare finds you.
When I inherited my grandmother's old Victorian house, I thought I'd won the lottery. 3 stories, beautiful architecture, and completely paid off. The only catch was the basement tenant who'd been living there for decades. "Mr. Hoffman has been our basement tenant for 40 years, the lawyer explained. "Very quiet, pays rent in cash, never causes problems. The lease agreement says he can stay as long as he wants." I figured an elderly tenant would be perfect. Extra income and someone to watch the house. I moved in last September and barely heard a peep from downstairs. Rent money appeared under my door every month like clockwork. But 3 weeks ago, things started getting weird. I began hearing sounds at night. Not footsteps exactly, more like something heavy being dragged across the concrete floor. When I knocked on the basement door to check on Mr. Hoffman, the sounds would immediately stop. "Everything okay down there?" I'd call out. "Just fine, dear," came his raspy voice. "Just rearranging some furniture." The smell started next. A sickeningly sweet odor that seemed to seep up through the floorboards, like rotting flowers mixed with something metallic. I assumed maybe his plumbing was having issues, so I offered to call a repair service. "No need," he said through the door. "I prefer to handle things myself." Last Friday, I decided to investigate. I found the spare basement key my grandmother had hidden and waited until I heard Mr. Hoffman leave, which apparently he did every day around 3 a.m. I'd never seen him come or go, but I heard the basement door open and close. The basement was much larger than I expected, extending under the entire house, but it was completely empty except for a single chair in the center of the room. No bed, no furniture, no belongings, just that one wooden chair with dark stains covering the seat and arms. The walls, though, that's what made my blood freeze. They were covered in photographs, hundreds of them. Pictures of people sleeping in their beds, taken through windows. Men, women, children, all photographed without their knowledge. The photos were organized by date, going back decades. But the newest section made me vomit. There were photos of me, sleeping in my bed upstairs. Dozens of them, taken every night since I'd moved in. Some showed me tossing and turning, others captured me in deep sleep, completely vulnerable. The most recent photo was from the night before, but in this one, I wasn't alone in the bed. There was a shadowy figure standing right beside me, leaning over my sleeping form. I ran upstairs and called the police, but when they searched the basement, everything was gone. No photos, no chair, no evidence. The officers said there was no record of any Mr. Hoffman ever living at that address. "But the rent money," I insisted. "He pays me every month." The officer looked confused. "Ma'am, we checked with the previous owner. Your grandmother lived alone for the last 15 years. There's never been a basement tenant." That night, I stayed at a hotel. But when I came back the next morning, there was a note under my door. "Dear tenant, thank you for the lovely photos. I especially enjoyed watching you sleep. I'll be back tonight to take more pictures. Don't worry, I'm very quiet. You'll never even know I'm there. Your basement friend." I'm writing this from my car. I can see my bedroom window from here. There's a shadow moving around inside, and I know it's waiting for me to come home. The worst part, I just realized I never actually inherited that house. My grandmother died 20 years ago.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you. I work as a late-night delivery driver for a local pizza chain. The pay sucks, but the tips are decent and I need the money for college. Most deliveries are pretty routine. Drunk college kids, night shift workers, insomniacs ordering comfort food. But last Thursday, I got an order that still keeps me awake. The address was 1247 Elmwood Drive, way out in the suburbs where houses are spread far apart. The order was simple: one large pepperoni pizza, paid for with cash on deliveries. The house was set way back from the street, barely visible through overgrown bushes and tall grass. No porch light, no mailbox number visible, just a dark silhouette against the night sky. I grabbed the pizza and walked up the cracked driveway. The house looked abandoned, peeling paint, boarded windows, collapsed front porch. But the order specifically said 1247 Elmwood Drive. I knocked on the front door. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. "Pizza delivery!" A voice came from inside, thin, scratchy, like someone who hadn't spoken in years. "Come in, dear. The door's unlocked." I should have left right then. Company policy says never enter a customer's home. But it was raining, I was behind on my rent, and I needed that tip money. The front door creaked open into complete darkness. The smell hit me immediately. Mold, decay, and something else. Something sweet and rotten. "Hello?" I called out. "I have your pizza." "Kitchen?" the voice rasped from somewhere deeper in the house. "Follow the hallway." I used my phone's flashlight to navigate through the darkness. The walls were covered in water stains and peeling wallpaper. Family photos hung in crooked frames, but the faces in the pictures seemed to follow me as I walked past. The kitchen was at the back of the house. A single candle flickered on the counter, casting dancing shadows on the walls, but I couldn't see anyone. "Where would you like me to put this?" I asked. "On the table, sweetie," came the voice, now right behind me. I spun around, but nobody was there, just shadows dancing in the candlelight. That's when I noticed the kitchen table. It was set for dinner, 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 glasses of what looked like wine. But the food on the plates wasn't food at all. It was dirt. Fresh soil piled high on both plates, with earthworms crawling through it. "Sit down," the voice commanded, now right beside my ear. "Dinner's getting cold." I backed toward the door, but it slammed shut. The candle flame grew brighter, and I could finally see her. She was sitting at the table, fork in hand, smiling at me with dirt-stained teeth. Her dress was rotted and torn, her skin gray and mottled. Maggots crawled in and out of holes in her cheeks. "I've been so lonely," she said, taking a bite of dirt. "Nobody visits anymore, not since they buried me last year. I tried to run, but my feet wouldn't move." She stood up slowly, bits of flesh falling from her bones. "Stay for dinner," she pleaded, reaching out to me with skeletal fingers. "I ordered your favorite, pepperoni pizza, but I thought we'd start with soil, fresh from my grave." That's when I noticed the pile of pizza boxes in the corner. Dozens of them, all moldy and rotted, all from our restaurant. I somehow broke free and ran. I left the pizza, left my dignity, left everything. I drove straight home and quit my job that same night. But here's the thing that really scares me. I checked the records the next day. There is no 1247 Elmwood Drive. That address doesn't exist. And every night since then, my phone gets the same call at exactly 2:47 a.m. A scratchy voice asking when I'm going to deliver her pizza. If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now, before the next nightmare finds you.
I've been a substitute teacher for 5 years, and I thought I'd seen everything. Bratty kids, outdated textbooks, broken equipment, but nothing prepared me for Jefferson Elementary, room 15B. The regular teacher, Mrs. Henderson, had been hospitalized with a sudden illness. The principal, Mrs. Garcia, seemed nervous when she handed me the class roster. "The children in this room are special," she said, avoiding eye contact. "They've been through some trauma. Just follow the lesson plan and try not to ask too many questions." The classroom was at the end of a long hallway, separated from the other classes. When I walked in that Monday morning, 12 children were sitting perfectly still at their desks, hands folded, staring straight ahead. "Good morning, class," I said cheerfully. "I'm Miss Johnson, your substitute teacher." They all turned to look at me in perfect unison, like synchronized swimmers. 12 pairs of eyes, all completely emotionless. No smiles, no fidgeting, no whispered conversations, just eerie silence. "Let's start with attendance," I said, looking at the roster. "Michael Andrews?" "Present," came a flat, monotone response from the front row. "Sarah Beth Cooper?" "Present." Each name I called received the same robotic response. No raised hands, no here, no personality whatsoever. Just 12 children sitting like perfect little dolls. The lesson plan was simple, basic math and reading. But when I wrote problems on the blackboard, something strange happened. All 12 children wrote the exact same answers in the exact same handwriting at the exact same speed. Even when I gave them creative writing assignments, they all wrote identical stories word for word. During lunch break, I asked Mrs. Garcia about the class. "Those children died in a bus accident 3 months ago. The whole class was coming back from a field trip when a drunk driver hit their bus. All 12 of them, gone in an instant." I stared at her. "That's impossible. I just spent the morning teaching them." She looked at me with pity in her eyes. "Room 15B has been empty since the accident. We keep it as a memorial." I ran back to the classroom, convinced she was lying or confused. But when I opened the door, the room was exactly as she described. Empty desks covered in dust, wilted flowers on the windowsill, 12 small photos taped to the blackboard. But the blackboard still had my math problems written on it. And there were 12 identical worksheets on the floor, all completed in that same perfect handwriting. The next day, I couldn't help myself. I went back. They were there again, sitting in perfect formation, waiting for me. "Good morning, Miss Johnson," they said in unison, their voices echoing strangely in the empty room. "You're not real," I whispered. "You're all dead." 12 heads tilted to the right at exactly the same angle. 12 mouths opened in identical smiles that showed too many teeth. "We know," they said together, "but we never got to finish school. We never got to graduate. We never got to grow up." Michael, the boy in the front row, stood up slowly. Half of his face was caved in from the bus accident, but he was still smiling. "Will you help us finish our education, Miss Johnson? We're such good students. We'll never misbehave. We'll never leave. We'll be your students forever and ever." The other 11 children stood up as well. I could see their injuries now. Broken necks, crushed skulls, arms bent at impossible angles. But they all kept smiling those horrible, perfect smiles. "Please don't leave us," Sarah Beth said, her voice gurgling through a throat that had been crushed. "Mrs. Henderson tried to leave us. That's why she's in the hospital now. But you won't leave, will you, Miss Johnson?" I backed toward the door, but it wouldn't open. The children started walking toward me, their movements jerky and unnatural. "Class is in session," they chanted together. "Class is always in session." I don't remember how I got out, but I never went back to Jefferson Elementary. I heard later that Mrs. Henderson passed away in the hospital, and they're looking for a new permanent teacher for room 15B. They call me every few days, asking if I'm interested in the position. I always hang up. But sometimes, late at night, I hear 12 children reciting their lessons outside my window.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you.
I never thought online dating would lead to horror, but I was wrong. Dead wrong. Her profile name was Nightbloom87, and her photos were stunning. Long dark hair, mysterious smile, piercing green eyes. She said she worked night shifts as a nurse, which explained why she only messaged me after midnight. We chatted for weeks. She was funny, intelligent, and surprisingly deep. She knew obscure poetry, could discuss philosophy for hours, and had this way of making me feel like I was the most interesting person in the world. "I'd love to meet you," she finally wrote, "but I have a condition that makes me very sensitive to sunlight. Would you be willing to meet at night?" I agreed immediately. We planned to meet at Riverside Park at 11 p.m. on Friday night. I got there early, nervous but excited. The park was empty except for a few joggers and dog walkers. I sat on our designated bench near the old oak tree and waited. At exactly 11 p.m., I heard footsteps approaching. She emerged from the shadows, and she was even more beautiful than her photos. Pale skin that seemed to glow in the moonlight, those incredible green eyes, and a smile that made my heart skip. "David?" she said in a voice like honey. "I'm so glad you came." We walked along the river, talking easily like we'd known each other for years. She was witty, charming, and incredibly interested in everything I said. I felt like I was in a dream. "I'm having such a wonderful time," she said, taking my hand. Her skin was ice cold. "Would you like to come back to my place? I live just through those trees." I should have noticed the red flags. Her freezing touch, the way she never seemed to blink, how her breath didn't fog in the cold air, but I was completely enchanted. Her house was actually a mausoleum in the old cemetery behind the park. Ornate stone building with stained glass windows and heavy iron doors. "I know it seems strange," she noticed, with my hesitation, "but I house sit for a wealthy family who travels frequently. They love Gothic architecture." The inside was surprisingly luxurious. Velvet furniture, candles everywhere, classical music playing softly. She poured wine from an expensive-looking bottle. "To new beginnings," she toasted, watching intently as I drank. The wine tasted metallic, but I didn't want to be rude. Within minutes, I felt dizzy and disoriented. "Don't fight it," she whispered, and her voice sounded different now, older, echoing strangely. "Just let it happen." That's when I noticed the walls were covered in photographs. Dozens of men, all smiling, all holding wine glasses, all looking exactly like I felt. Drugged, trapped. "You're not the first," she said, and when I looked at her again, she had changed. Her beautiful face was rotting, skin hanging in gray strips. Her green eyes were now hollow sockets with tiny lights flickering inside. "I've been so lonely since they buried me here in 1887, but dating apps have made it so much easier to find companionship. Men are so trusting when they think they're meeting a beautiful woman." I tried to run, but my legs wouldn't work. The wine had paralyzed me. "The others lasted about a week before they expired," she said, stroking my face with fingers that felt like ice and bone. "But don't worry, you won't be alone down here. I keep all my dates with me forever." She gestured toward the floor, and I saw them. Bones scattered around the mausoleum. Dozens of skeletons all wearing rotted clothing, all with their skulls turned towards us as if they were still watching. "Welcome to my eternal dating service," she laughed, and the sound echoed through the stone chamber like breaking glass. I must have passed out from the drugs because I woke up in a hospital bed 3 days later. Police said joggers found me wandering the cemetery, delusional and dehydrated, talking about a dead woman and online dating. They said there was no mausoleum in that cemetery, no evidence of any other victims. But I know what happened, and every night since then, I get messages on my dating app from new profiles. Dead Rose 1823, Ghost Lady 1901, Cemetery Angel 1888. They all want to meet at midnight. They all say they're lonely, and they all use the same photos of the rotting woman with hollow green eyes.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out, so subscribe now before the next nightmare finds you.